Good afternoon, everyone. It looks like we still have participants joining. As we get started, just anchoring you all with a welcome and a quick overview of what we'll be discussing today. We'll do a welcome and vision, and then we will move into a conversation on the culturally and linguistically responsive inventory and framework. And we will have a panel of individuals from districts and charter schools joining us as Equity Council leads or co-leads. And we will move into some announcements, which is different for typically for our meetings. And then we will move into reminders and next steps. And it looks like we have a steady number in the room of 61. So a quick reminder as we navigate in this webinar space feature of Zoom, that hosts and panelists can share their screen, videos, and audio in the webinar. Our attendees, though, can only use the chat option to interact with those of us who are panelists, and you do not have microphone or camera controls. And the chat should be used exclusively during the whole group sharing, and you can submit questions about SharePoint access and content questions to your equity facilitator. And then for SharePoint access, again, it would be our general email address. A quick reminder that your equity facilitator will contact you from an email address that ends in @hprec.com. It is a valid email address that was provided by the NMPED for our equity facilitators and not spam. Okay, we're moving into our centering activity and we have Ian joining us for that.
Thank you, Maida. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Escobar. I have the good fortune to serve as one of the equity facilitators, and I'd like to offer this centering activity as we move into this space together. Invite you to participate at whatever level feels comfortable to you. Invite you to sit with your feet firmly on the ground, sit or stand with your feet firmly on the ground. Have your back tall and strong, not necessarily rigid. Invite you to roll your shoulders back and down, and then soften your gaze or close your eyes if that's helpful to you. And once you're in this position, invite you to take big, deep breaths in through your nose, filling your lungs in 360 degrees before exhaling through your mouth. As you take these slow, deep breaths, I invite you to come home to your body. I invite you to draw a curtain between this moment when we're all together and all the email and the to-do items and the activity that may have come before this time together. I invite you to draw a curtain with that so you can be more present. I invite you to breathe in calmness and stillness and peace. If that's something that you might want a little bit more of these days. As you continue to breathe deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth, I invite you to create enough stillness in your body that you can feel your heartbeat. And as you do this, I invite you to check in, acknowledging how your heart shows up for you every single day, how it provides a rhythm and a soundtrack for your life, how it moves your water through your body. Maybe as you breathe in and out, you can feel how your lungs support your heart, how your lungs help lift your chest. And also, as you exhale, how it brings your heart back in. Next, I invite you to draw your attention to the soles of your feet. You can wiggle your toes, you can lift your heel, recognizing that underneath the soles of our feet is probably some sort of a structure. And then underneath that is the land and soil and the earth. And with your next few breaths, I invite you to remember that we're from the land and of the land and with the land. You can feel that connection, some grounding energy, connecting yourself with this moment and with the earth. Noticing how that feels in your body as you connect with nature. I'm going to invite us to begin to close our practice. We spent some time centering, feeling our heart, tuning into the rhythm and its beat. Spend a little bit of time grounding, feeling our feet firmly on the ground. Now I'll invite us to take 3 big deep breaths as we begin to connect as a collective in this space. So I invite you to take an inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Second breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Third breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. When you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes, take a look around the room where you find yourself, noticing some of the details, the colors, the textures that maybe you missed. Also noticing the entrance and exit points in the room. This helps our bodies settle down. Appreciate you all trying on that practice. Apologize if you could hear my dog gnawing on a treat in the background, but very grateful and happy to be with you in this time this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. As we move into this space, 3 meeting objectives for us. We are going to spend some time with all of our attendees in order to support them in receiving an overview of the Equity Council Support Hub for the current school year, including information on service providers. We will also move into the space of reviewing and providing an overview of the culturally and linguistically responsive inventory and framework. And we'll hear from a panel of Equity Council leads. And we will spend some time with Equity Council leads or all of us together brainstorming a list of things that you can do next with your Equity Council. Our norms for this space that we propose are to stay engaged, which means remaining morally, emotionally, intellectually, and socially involved in dialogue. The next would be to speak your truth. And this means being open about thoughts and feelings and not just saying what we think others want to hear. Experiencing discomfort and knowing that these conversations are difficult, but through dialogue, and even when we're uncomfortable, we can move into healing and change. And then, of course, we have expect and accept non-closure, which means that we can hang out in uncertainty and not rush quickly into solutions, and especially in relation to the work that we're doing. And then to isolate race and intersectorisms, which means that we want to engage in a discussion and analysis of race and then move into intersecting with other factors like class, gender, and our ethnicity. And they all happen to play a role in our education system. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move into an overview of the EC Support Hub.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Brower, and I'm privileged to be an Equity Council facilitator, supporting 21 different charters and districts across the state. And so it's good to be here with y'all. I'm going to share a little bit about top line information about our Equity Council Support Hub. You can kind of see the sum of the parts right here. And then in the next slide, we're going to go a little bit deeper into individual components of this. The first one and the most important one is the Equity Council leads. So you all who are joining us today, you are the heart and soul of the Equity Council work that we're doing across the state and at your district or charter school level. You're the ones who are investing your time and investing others and influencing others to be part of your team as your school or district is really centering around equity and putting equity into action for your students and your community members. The second group are the Equity Council facilitators. And so you see the list of folks here that are working with each of you all monthly and when needed to support your efforts in putting equity into action for your community. They also are able to support you with feedback and progress, overcome challenges that might come up, and also support with innovations that are really true to what your community and your students are interested in pursuing for sure. So the next slide, these are some of the Equity Council service providers. So we have 4 different groups here that provide additional and profound supports for you all as you need them throughout the state. And so these are folks and groups that can support you with content expertise in building opportunities across your district or charter's needs. I also wanted to just mention the last one here on this list, Seen from Terrace Education Partnership. They're working on a project around family and community partnerships. Superintendents and charter school administrators have received information about this, and that could be something that you could ask your superintendent or district or charter administrator about, and kind of thinking through what your school or charter or district would be interested in pursuing with regard to considering family partnership practices. All right, so I'm going to move on into some of the goals that we have for this year, for the 2022 year session with Equity Council. So continuing to establish and build upon the relationships that we've created so far and that you've created in your local context. We're going to provide differentiated support for equity leads and the Equity Council Support Hub roles. We're going to be also centering around equity systems. So thinking about moving into how can we adopt or adapt policies, processes, and programming that's going to support our students, especially the students who are furthest away from opportunities in our context. We're going to be leveraging equity and action items as we move forward through each of our months as well. And then we're going to focus in on interdependency and building opportunities for us to learn from one another, learn from best practices locally, statewide, and nationally that we can build upon for sure. Some of the essential questions we have here, we have 4 of them for this time throughout this year. I won't go into complete detail on each of these. I'll give the paraphrasing here, but the first one is, how are we prioritizing our students and families furthest from opportunity throughout our Equity Council work? How do we establish Equity Councils that are set up to succeed and actually advise district and charter schools around budgets, services, and programs? How do we establish councils that are able to support district and charter schools to move beyond compliance and to committing to equity in all that the institutions do for students and staff and families? And then finally, how do we support structures and systems that will effectively create partnerships between all stakeholders on the Equity Council? So this is a quick rundown on where we've been and where we're headed. And so, we've kind of in January had a chance to reground ourselves in the Martinez-Yazzie lawsuit. February, we recentered around the readiness assessment and using NMPED to support our efforts around putting equity into action. Last month, we focused around the strategic equity plan and how that relates to the budget and NM-dash reporting. And then for today, we're going to be focusing specifically around the culturally and linguistically responsive, the CLR inventory and framework. Great, and this is just another fun slide to kind of show you where we've been. In February, we were doing readiness assessments and kind of thinking through what, if anything, do we need to change from the last time that we grounded ourselves within the readiness assessment. Last month, we talked about the equity plan and really focused around creating equitable budgets. And then today, as you can see, we're really amplifying, focusing in on the CLR inventory and framework. And so with that, I'm going to pass the mic back to, I believe, Myra.
Thank you, Ellen. Before we move into our panel, just a quick overview. And a reminder that this information has been shared previously, but we want to make sure that we anchor ourselves, particularly for those who have come into the Equity Council lead space most recently. A reminder of the NMPED vision for students in New Mexico to be engaged in a culturally and linguistically responsive education system that meets the social, emotional, and academic needs of all of our students. From our legislative findings and purpose, we are anchored in the following, and that the citation is below if any of you would like to visit. The NMPED legislature has found that the key to success in a multicultural education system is one that attracts and retains quality and diverse teachers to teach New Mexico's multicultural student population, one that holds teachers, students, schools, districts, and the state accountable, one that integrates the cultural strengths of its diverse student population into the curriculum with high expectations for all students, one that recognizes that cultural diversity in the state presents special challenges for policymakers, administrators, teachers, and students, and one that provides students with a rigorous and relevant high school curriculum that prepares them to succeed in college and the workplace. And lastly, one that elevates the importance of public education in the state by clarifying the governance structure at different levels. So this is also an anchor in addition to the PED vision. So what is a CLR framework? It's really the structure districts, schools, and charter schools use to ensure that their students have access to programs and services that are culturally and linguistically responsive and meet their social, emotional, and academic needs. And so to the right, we do have an example of one particular from one of our charter schools, the CLR framework. How do district schools and charter schools design a CLR framework? So we do have a schooling by design tool that is available on the Martinez-Iñazzi Consolidated Lawsuit website. And that particular tool includes a CLR inventory within it. And these tools are focused to support you in the practical application and the how-to operationalize a CLR framework. And along with that, there is an additional tool which really digs into the culturally and linguistically responsive side of instruction. So some highlights from the CLR Schooling by Design tool. Should you go into this particular tool, you will find additional tools that support building a framework that's sustainable and student family centered. It also allows users to implement at their own pace and their own timeline. So this would be important for districts and charter schools to really take on local control and consider what does this look like? And if we already have a framework, could we revisit it and consider if there's anything that needs to be included? It's also purposefully aligned to the CLR Guidance Handbook. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The CLR framework tool is really structured in 5 stages. Stage 0, which really focuses on who are our underserved students and families. And so in addition to the student groups that were named in the Martinez-Iñazzi lawsuit, which are English learners, students with disabilities, those who are economically disadvantaged, and Native American, we also want to dig a little bit deeper and consider intersectionalities, and then also any other students and families who may be underserved in your context and community. The next stage focuses on what desired outcomes families have for their children. The next stage focuses on what ongoing evidence can be collected and how will we know we're meeting the outcomes for our underserved students. Then we move into the 4th stage, or stage 3, of what plan will result in incremental progress towards our outcomes. And then the final, how will we ensure consistent attention to the needs of our underserved students? How do we keep moving forward? So the CLR framework inventory, also included within that guidance document, helps break this down further. And so it is specific to each stage, and it does have questions that can be used with a scale of we're well informed, or we have begun to research this, or we're in the beginning stages of exploring this particular question or the content of this question. The partner CLR guidance handbook that is in fact something that is part of the Language and Culture Division's work is a little more anchored on unpacking culturally and linguistically responsiveness. It has visual representations of CLR frameworks. It talks about how to change, transform, and become someone who is advocating for CLR. It talks about multicultural education, critical pedagogy, and action research. So it's really the theory behind ensuring that our students see themselves in schools and are supported by the adults in the schools. And it also talks about culturally responsive school leadership. So leadership matters, and how do we as leaders support our students and those doing the work. And then of course, implementation of best practices. So again, this is really, if you'd like to dig a little bit further, it's where the theory and the research sits. A reminder that many of you have submitted your CLR framework and have made it to this stage in spite of everything going on. And that template, we do provide a template for schools to submit this in SharePoint and districts. And the template is designed based on the CLR inventory, and districts and charter schools that have a current framework in place would have the option to submit their framework as it's aligned to the 5 stages of CLR inventory. And you'll hear from our panel. Some of them are in different places, but definitely if you are still not here, please know that there's still time, and we want to make sure that you take the time needed in your local context. Additional resources that are on the Martinez and Yazzie consolidated lawsuit are here. You'll find a couple of articles, of course, the Schooling by Design tools, the CLR inventory, which is also within that Schooling by Design tool, but also available as a Word document separately, and links to that particular guidance document on CLR as well. Okay, we're moving into a quick discussion on what's going on in your local context.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Rosa. I'm a member of the Support Hub. So as usual, we're going to do a chat activity. In this activity, you're going to drop into the chat specifically, oh, and there's a typo here, I apologize, specifically where you are around the CLR framework and your inventory. If you can let your peers know where you are with those things, any tips or tricks, any aha moments, drop those into the chat now. I'm seeing that some people are done with both. People are uploading into SharePoint. Some are still working on it, which is great. Some are going to meet with their councils very soon to start going through that inventory, which is fantastic. Productively in progress. One aha moment was ensuring, let's see, I missed it. Ensuring that it was in line with their own critical commitments. Completed both and in progress. Thank you all so much for sharing all of that information. Some are going to share with their board soon. An aha moment was that the framework was in line with their own mission and commitments. So those are all really fantastic. I encourage all of you to scan through that chat for ideas and possible partnerships with your Equity Council leads and peers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kara.
All right, Yate, Kara Babra, Shina Shli, Natani Bashichin. Good afternoon, everybody. It's really always good to be together virtually and connect. And I have the opportunity to facilitate a informal discussion with 3 different communities from across New Mexico. We'll hear first from Rio Rancho Public Schools, and then we'll go on to have a conversation with our colleagues and folks from Farmington Municipal Schools, and then we will have a reflection and kind of a closing with a charter school in the Albuquerque area. But as I said, my name is Kara Barbara from Navajo, my mother's side. From my family's from a community in Rima. I'm born for Lakota on my father's side, but really was the founder of the Native American Community Academy Knock Inspired Schools Network, and then had the opportunity to work at the Public Education Department with this amazing team to really get some of this work started. So I really value the time I have together with each and every one of you around both equity councils and the CLR work that we know is emerging, and in some cases already complete in being revisited and implemented into our schools and school systems. Currently I lead a organization that focuses on early stage innovations in Native American communities to address inequities around education and other holistic measures that support students and families. But I want to turn our attention to our first panelist, and at the end, we'll have time for some questions. So I want to ask that you put those into the chat at that time. But if you want to comment and or give I guess a word of praise, a word of excitement, or a word of anything that you see or hear today from our colleagues, please feel free to utilize the chat for that, or the Q&A as well. So Tanya Baker is the Curriculum Instruction Coordinator at Rio Rancho Public Schools, and she'll be sharing a little bit about where Rio Rancho is. And if Tanya, you want to undo your camera, that'd be great. Yay, thanks, Tanya. So really today, just wanted to, Tanya, if you can just share a little bit about your district and where you are in this journey. And I know that there's some intersection between the work of the Equity Council as well as the work of establishing culturally and linguistically responsive instruction and or the framework for schools in your district, and also how you think about serving students. So really just going to turn it over to you to share a little bit about what that journey's been like, and also how you see this working in your respective school district, and anything you would like to share as we kind of close to the time we have with you on the panel about any big takeaways that you have as well. So I'm just going to turn that over to you, and I will let you take it from there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you, Tanya.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to share what Rio Rancho Public Schools is doing around equity and culturally and linguistically responsiveness. I love seeing in the chat that folks are working with Dr. Holly, using Dr. Holly's work, and we are doing that as well. So this visual that you're seeing on your screen now really does represent our Rio Rancho Public Schools CLR inventory and framework. And we think it's important to our students and school community because it's the anchor that guides our equity work. From the excerpt in the lower right-hand corner, which is from our RPS strategic plan, to the Equity Council, the Equity in the Classroom text box that is alongside the words culturally and linguistically responsive, growth mindset, mindfulness, social emotional learning, and collective teacher efficacy. That really pulls all of that together. The theme that's woven into the fabric of our inventory is each and every. We believe each and every person in Rio Rancho Public Schools deserves to feel a sense of belonging and to feel supported and equipped for success. This inventory serves as a reminder that initiatives such as the New Mexico multi-layered system of supports, the positive behavior intervention system, and high quality instructional materials as part of a guaranteed and viable curriculum are not standalone tasks to be checked off to demonstrate compliance. Rather, they are tools designed to support the whole student. So once we created this initial inventory, we obtained feedback from the Equity Council members around what might be missing. And as a result of their feedback, information regarding serving students with different abilities was added. So we definitely want to make sure that that's included. And then we consider this to be a living document that we need to reflect on and revise as necessary. And to that end, additional feedback was obtained from the K-12 CNI coordinating team as we were preparing to resume in-person learning. Updates such as replacing RTI with MLSS language, rolling trauma-informed instruction up into social and emotional learning, and adding collective teacher efficacy were made. Moving forward, we also felt the addition of the words rebound, reimagine, and renew would facilitate the transition back into the classroom and in-person learning. And finally, the takeaway that we would like to share with Equity Council leads is that this work is messy and uncomfortable, and that you just need to learn to be okay with that because it reflects authenticity in the learning and the growth process. It's very personal and unique to each community, and it requires intentionality, collaboration, and most definitely clear communication. And then also, I just wanted to share the definition of equity that our Equity Council came up with. Equity is an intentional process of acknowledging and removing obstacles and barriers. Through equity, environments and opportunities are fostered to support individual and group needs with access to resources so that all may reach their potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for sharing that. And as people have different thoughts or ideas, I know I saw one thing in the chat around whether we'll be able to share the slides, and definitely we'll be able to do that and share information to get in contact with folks. And it seems like one thing that you were speaking to, Tanya, that resonates is that this was a process over a period of time. Could you talk a little bit about what did that look like, and how did the educators in your district kind of enter into the work, and if you could give us a timeline around how you see this kind of from start to now, about how long has that taken, and is there anything that you would suggest for those who are just starting out on this journey?
Let's see, I'll try to remember all of those things. So definitely the work on the visual, the first visual that of the slide deck that we were showing started as early as 2019, and just is a reflection of all of the different things, all the pieces that are part of Rio Rancho Public Schools as a whole. Input from teachers. We got the rough draft of this visual, and then as we conducted work with teachers throughout the year, we would share this visual and ask for their feedback and just their reaction to it in general. It's definitely important for everybody involved to feel ownership in this work and understand how all of the pieces fit together, and that it isn't just about compliance, that it's about all of these pieces of the puzzle really work together to create the whole, as we are working with not just students, but even every person that works within Rio Rancho Public Schools. I know there's something that I didn't address.
No, I think you got that. I know you shared earlier just that there was a need for that the work can be messy, and that you just need to realize that it's also personal, and that I think that's a good learning and experience to share, because there's an easy way to do this. Like, you could rush through it all and try to figure out how can you get the task done, and that's more of a compliance mindset versus a commitment mindset, is that it's really being something that's felt and embedded in our communities and with both students and staff and educators. So thank you for sharing that as well. I think you had done that. And then I just wanted to capture the quote: at the heart of innovation are people, not stuff. If we always keep that truth at the forefront of our work, we are more likely to create an innovative culture. George Couros. And so just any comment on that quote that you have? I thought that was also helpful in thinking about how we continue to think about change and think about what it is that we're doing in order to center our work on being responsive to the needs of our students and families.
Absolutely. So that's one of the updates in as part of our living document, of this being a living document. We are always seeking to learn, and because when we know, we do better. When we know better, we do better. And as part of that work, preparing to come back to in-person learning in particular, because we know that the pandemic just brought to the forefront issues with inequity in how our students are being taught and how their needs are being met. And we had done some work with Brene Brown, and that had centered our work for a long time. And then we came across some work and did some work with George Quiros as well, and had him come and actually do the convocation for us back in 2020, as we were preparing to come back to school. And that just really resonated with us, that we really need to be putting people first. And when we do that, then all of these other things kind of start to fall into place. And then we can ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students.
And last question, and I'm going to move on to our colleagues and friends from Farmington. What is your hope for this work as you're moving, your hope and your intention, or as you move into the next school year and kind of the next iteration, or as you're thinking about the next step? So can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So we have all of the pieces in place, so to speak, but we recognize that this is a journey and that there's still a lot of work left to be done. Not every student feels like they belong. Not every student is having his or her needs being met. And we are hopeful that as we continue with our Equity Council, we can really elevate the voices of those students so that we know and they can voice what their needs are, and that we can just drill down to be able to support them.
Cool. Thank you, Tanya. And then if y'all wanted to say thanks for Tanya sharing today in the chat, please feel free to do that so we can see that. I know that we can't really do this, but thank you for sharing. And then I want to move on to our friends from Farmington Municipal Schools, Karen Garcia Brown and Aaron Gockel. If you can uncamera yourself, or however that goes. All right. Thank you, guys. So the dynamic duo, I had an opportunity to connect, and really excited to have these folks share a little bit about what's going on in Farmington up north. And Farmington's a district that serves about 12,000 students, just under 12,000 students, and a really important piece of the community and leaders in San Juan County, so in the surrounding areas as well. So really happy to have you all take some time to share, so we appreciate that. But I'm going to similarly just ask Karen if you can share a little bit just about the journey as you think about both equity and CLR, and then also if you and Aaron, for you to also share. Well, you'll see where they're headed, and I'm going to prompt a few questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Karen to get started. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Karen Garcia Brown, and I am the Multicultural Director for Farmington Schools. And Aaron Gockel is my co-lead for our Equity Council. And so I'll just kind of begin, when Martinez Yazzie came about and districts were asked to have an Equity Council, it was kind of the E word, shall I say. And so I went around the district saying we have to have an Equity Council. And so we began on our journey, and we created our Equity Council, and weren't quite sure what we were going to do, but off we went. And we had some meetings, and it started out as I think everyone else did. It started out with compliance, and then we moved, and the more we met, it became a very committed group of people, and we had students on our group. And the more we dug into what was the purpose, why are we here, we became extremely committed. And even through COVID, we continue to meet virtually. And even though people could not meet virtually every single time, everyone could not meet every single time, they still came together and met. And the group continued to say, we need to know what we are doing and not doing for our underserved children, and who are our underserved children. And so we completed the readiness assessment. And then now that we are meeting in person again, we completed the CLRI inventory. And through all of this, it has grown to a point that I met with our directors and said, this cannot be an afterthought of the bilingual director. We can't say, you know, the Equity Council is just something that the bilingual director does. So I said, we need to have someone in this district whose position is to take care of equity, to lead equity in this district, to be out there and champion equity for our children. And so I asked if we could have a coordinator or a director or someone to get out there and just shout equity for our children. And so they agreed, and Erin's position was created as the equity coordinator, and she has just done wonders with it and now is co-leading with me in the Equity Council. And that's how that came about, and she's done a wonderful job. And so not only do we have Erin's position, we also have equity coaches in 4 of our highest need elementary schools, and are now hiring an equity coach at the secondary level. And so we're very excited about that. And we are really moving forward with our CLRI pathways for our teachers as well and our administrators. And so I really have to be proud of the fact that, you know, a few years ago when I was running around saying, we need an equity council, guys, that now we're moving into, we have an equity coordinator and equity coaches. We have sounded the alarm. There is an awakening in the district, and people are excited, and everybody's talking about, are we meeting the needs of these children? And we're partnering with, you know, the community people and parents, and we have students on our equity council and school board. We have the president of the school board on our equity council, which is important. So the message is out there. Our definition of equity, our equity council stated that, what is our desired impact that we want from our equity council? And they felt that we wanted to make certain that we studied all pertinent data, qualitative and quantitative, that was related to student success, and that we wanted to support how our district and schools could better serve the students who need it the most. And so we wanted to look at things from an asset-based lens. And if anything, the message that we can send is to stay strong and to make certain that you continue with your message all the time. Don't ever back down. Just say, it's all about the kids. It's not about the adults. It's all about the children. And that's why we're here, is for our children. And so I'm going to turn it over to Erin because she's got some very powerful things to share with you herself.
Good afternoon. My name is Erin Gokul. I'm excited to be here and share a little bit about our journey that Farmington Schools has taken. One piece of our journey that I'd love to share is that we haven't been afraid of our other favorite word is failure. And we've tried and we've revised and we've tried again and again and again. That's led us on our journey to really thinking outside the box, looking at, do we need to provide transportation for our students who are on the Equity Council? If we want to make sure that we are reaching the needs of our students, what barriers can we help them overcome in order to attend? I joked that I would be in every drive-through in March and April and begging parents, right? I want more. I want more people. I want more voices. I want students to know that their input is valued. And I kind of sort of have. I've jumped into classrooms. Give me 5 minutes and I will, let me talk to your students. I have joined career fairs. I have stood on sidewalks and I'm not ashamed. And I think that that's a piece that we have done in our journey is we're not afraid to think outside the box. And we have been willing to say, this isn't working. Let's try again. This isn't working. And then let's try again. Kara, I know that you have questions for us too.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think perseverance is definitely a core value and thinking about this work and how to rethink it when it is not like necessarily the first solution that comes to our first thought, right? So we have one question about that I'll go back to, but the other thing is, can you talk a little bit about the roles of the coaches and your role, Erin, and how you see that? And then how have you embedded both CLRI and also the work of equity within the systems in your schools and school districts currently?
Absolutely. So I feel really lucky in this position. My whole long title is Teacher Development and Equity Coordinator. And I think that just having someone to lead that work and embed CLRI in so many different areas proves that Farmington we're not only walking the walk and talking the talk, but we're putting our money where our goals are. And our goals are indeed to embed CLR into all of teaching and learning aspects. So we're able to, in my position and having a position like this, able to lead the year 1 and year 2 teachers who are new to the profession and embed and model and coach and offer PD around CLR. I lead the Equity Coaches PLC, which currently has 4 equity coaches, and we look at how are they serving their schools so that it begins to spread systemically throughout our school buildings. And then those teachers, that cadre of teachers now gets to share out to other buildings. So it's really one step leads to the next and leads to the next. I get to lead the community schools piece for our 6 21st century grant buildings. And then adding in that CLR piece, how does that look if we are meeting students where they're at? Because my definition of equity is making sure I'm recognizing and celebrating the assets that students bring and help them to use those assets to be successful in school. And that fill in the blank students can also be parents, grandparents, teachers, staff. So what can we do to recognize and celebrate all of the assets and meet our students where they're at? Having this position allows Farmington to do that in a really targeted and aligned way, especially those to aligned to our 4 critical commitments. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely. And we do have about 3 questions in the chat, which I will get to them. And Erin, how did you prepare yourself to do this work? And I know Karen, you talked early on about I introduced a book, I introduced a conversation, I started working with my fellow colleagues and directors. And then we started to see okay, this is something we're needed. And if we're going to do this, let's commit to it. And then now doing the work as a single role, Erin, how did you prepare yourself to do that? And anything you have that might help other equity council leads in thinking about this, or folks who are we've heard a lot of questions about how do we create a role within our school or within our school district? Any advice around that and how you prepared yourself to do this work as well?
A couple of things. I served as an instructional facilitator for the district for 3 years prior to this role. And I sought out anyone who I saw using strategies that met the needs of all students, regardless of who those students were. What were those teachers doing that helped kids come to school? Who were the teachers that were having students log on? And I asked if I could observe their classes and document their strategies. Dr. Zaretta Hammond's books, Dr. Shroki Holly's books, obviously all of the PED training that we've been offered for Pathway 1 and Pathway 2. Oh, I cannot say enough about how that support has really helped us support at the district level, ensuring that we have administrators, coaches, and board members who have attended Pathway 1 training with Dr. Holly. We're then able to do Pathway 2, cadres of teachers. That is exciting. And without that support, I'm not sure we would be as maybe on the third or fourth step that I'm hoping we're at without that support. So I think having the support, having a team of people who believe in the work, seeking out who are the change agents that are happening in your district, highlighting them as often as possible, drawing attention to what they're doing, and making sure that people know that what they're doing is intentional, it's purposeful, and it's a shift in mindset, looking at our students, again, through that asset-based lens, rather than a deficit lens. What are they bringing with them to school, rather than what are they not coming with?
Thank you for that. And some of the questions we have here, one is around you, and you talked a little bit about, you have your school board president on the Equity Council. Let's see, Virginia Chavez asked, have you involved your superintendents and school boards in the work of your equity councils? Have they been responsive and committed to this work? And then we had another question from Julia Jeffrey about, are you providing equity council training for school board members? And then have there been reluctant superintendents / boards, and how did you address that challenge? So just about the involvement of the school board and the superintendent in the process, and how you help support that as well.
Mrs. Brown, do you want to answer that, or would you like me to?
Either way, we're very fortunate that our school board president and our directors, our executive director of curriculum and instruction, we even had our human resource executive director go to Dr. Holly's training. I think the important part of this is at the very beginning, you have to have all those people. It's kind of like, who are the people on the bus type of thing. You have to have all those people involved immediately from the very beginning in the training, so that they understand the why. And if they don't understand the why, you can't move forward. And so once they understand the reasoning behind this, then you have their support to move forward. And we even have a school board member, a prior school board member who is now a community member, still coming in as a community member, participating in the Equity Council, because she so believes in this work that she doesn't want to give it up. And she's still a voice for the children out in the community. And so she attends training, at every level she can. And so she can spread the word out in the community. And so I think it goes back to what's the purpose, what's the goal, and what is the why. And once you establish that at the very beginning, it's a movement. And so I think that's your key. And you just need to make certain that you do that from the very beginning.
Thank you. And I think that grounding ourselves in meaning and purpose, and informing that through the dialogue with students and educators throughout the district, as well as our community members, is what I'm hearing really help put all of these different pieces together. And this last question you shared yesterday a little bit about what your plans are for going forward, and also your intention for going forward. So in talking about, in a very short amount of time, you were able to establish a position, work with 4 schools, and then starting to think about the secondary level, and then continuing to embed this into training and professional development and learning, so that systemically anybody who joins the Farmington municipal schools team and family has the opportunity to engage in this work from the very beginning within the district, which is great. So thinking about going forward, what are your thoughts on that, and what do you plan to do as you think about the next school year and beyond?
Erin, will you do that for me, please?
Absolutely. Our next District Equity Council meeting is having those 4 equity coaches share out of how CLR has affected their practice in their buildings. We're going to do center rotations, and our board members, our equity council members, and our newest members are all joining to go through those 4 rotations and see and hear through videos and conversations. The cadre of teachers have all been invited as well to kind of fill in those gaps and make sure that they can hear straight from the source as to what is going on and how it's happening and what it looks like in action. I think that's the key, because without connecting our equity council to those coaches and hearing from them, this now just becomes a checklist when I can stand up and just share PowerPoint slides of this is what we're doing. But instead, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what's happening in the classrooms. Take a look at this babbing scenario that happened last week that we can share out. Let's look at our early warning system and attendance data, the growth that's been shown based on CLR strategies in these 4 targeted schools, so that it can spread even further to all of our 19 buildings.
Thank you. And I'm going to go on to the next person, but we did have one last question. We probably have a lot that, and I apologize if I have missed some of them. And you also had mentioned like a 6-year plan. I know that was one thing that I thought was really amazing that the 2 of you had shared yesterday, is that you're looking at embedding this into like the strategic planning going into the future, which is great. And now you have the foundation to do that. So it makes that a lot smoother going forward for sure. And then Stephen Sanchez asked, can you comment on what outcomes you are seeing as you have established this support structure? And I think you shared a little bit about that as far as people being able to share the work, as well as having alignment and a common purpose and meaning for the work. But if there's anything else you wanted to add on that, that'd be great. And then I'll go on to our next panelist.
One of our biggest data PowerPoints is, or I guess I should say metrics, would be the attendance data. So kind of switching that mindset, I'm going to use one of our elementary schools as an example. So coming back from Dr. Holly's training, they, instead of calling home, right, or using a truant officer, or maybe some of those negative connotations with attendance, our equity coaches are calling and saying, come to school. Please just come to school. We don't care if it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Oh, you need a ride? Let's get you a ride. And they're connecting with our liaisons at the district level, and we're getting those students rides. And so to me, that attendance piece is one of the ones that we started tracking early last semester to ensure that we were meeting students where they're at, using those strategies of welcoming them when they do come into the classroom. Are we saying hello? Does everybody get to say, we're so glad you're here, instead of where have you been? So to me, that's one of the largest pieces of data that we have tracked this school year, and that has shown growth.
Thank you. Sounds like you're meeting the moment and the time, and meeting students and families where they're at, and building a community that is responsive to one another and supportive. I just want to say thank you to both of you, the dynamic duo. If anybody wants to put any kind of like thoughts into the chat, please do. And I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope everybody has also enjoyed the conversation as well. So we're going to move on to our next panelist, and Robin Brown. And Robin is from Cesar Chavez Charter School. It's a community school. And Robin is like, we talked a little bit yesterday, and thanks for your time, Robin. I know you're a teacher, and so you have so much going on, and also for fulfilling the lead position for your community. And just want to share a little bit about your mission. And then if you could, like, I know you shared you're at the kind of the front end of you've had a lot of dialogue with your equity council, and also navigating all the things that we all have been navigating around COVID not being in person, but also thinking about the mission of the school, where your equity council is, and then anything that you've heard from today that you think would be important going forward, because we want to recognize that we're all in different places. And so just wanted to get your thoughts and reflections on that as well.
Thank you, Kara. Good afternoon. My name is Robin Brown. I'm the ELD coordinator at Cesar Chavez Community School. We're a small school. We have about 200 students. So it's a little bit kind of like apples and oranges, right? And I think we have a lot of structures towards equity in place kind of even before the Equity Council was formed. One of those things is a mentorship program. That every student at our school has a mentor. We kind of have these weekly check-ins and kind of monitor their growth and meet with them and their families at least twice per quarter to sort of show them how they're doing and think about goals. And so one of our focuses as a school is trying to connect students to sort of being able to form their own goals, right? And sort of trying to make education practical for them and seeing what their desires are and what direction they're headed in, and also helping them to kind of make those decisions. So we're a non-traditional high school. We, our sort of value as far as equity goes, and something that we've talked about in the Equity Council, is really individualizing education. And along with that, to try to avoid assumptions, right? Avoiding assumptions about any particular group and what that group might be able to do. So we've had a lot of really interesting conversations, and we've kind of taken an organic approach. In our Equity Council, we have some really, really great voices in our group, and we've had a couple visitors too, so that's been really nice because it is hard to kind of get that long-term commitment. But we have so a couple of different meetings. We had one with a student that was struggling. We brought his mom in and sort of just discussed maybe some of the issues that they're facing. And then to contrast that, we had another student that maybe was struggling previously, but has done really well this year. And so we're kind of thinking about what clicked, right? And that particular parent has joined us several times and has experience in law. So that was a really nice voice to have as well. Our principal is on our council also. So that's really nice because she's there with us and sort of hearing different perspectives, different voices. And it's a way of us to be able to kind of think about what our focus is as a school. And so kind of thinking about what the other schools have done, because they are larger districts, I think hiring extra staff for those roles is one thing. At our school, I think we look at it maybe in a different way because we have a number of social workers. We have a lot of EAs, also a lot of bilingual staff. So that's a big support already, I think. So these are things I think we can continue to improve on. But that's been kind of our goal, is really just to work with students where they're at. And again, kind of like the other group said, just focusing on their strengths instead of weaknesses, or instead of like labeling. I mean, we even had this conversation that I think was kind of interesting yesterday about the word underserved, which is, it has a lot of different meanings, I think different connotations. I think the goal maybe for us as a state is that we don't have anyone who's underserved, right? But also kind of looking at, kind of thinking about people of what their strengths are. And I think that is part of the CLR framework. So some of the things that we've done this year, and one of our focuses is to really highlight student voice and community voice and some of the voices of our staff. And I think that's something that our school does well and has done well for years. But one thing that we created was a student blog. So that was kind of an idea that came out of this, which has been really, really fun. And I think something that will, we're excited to see that grow and see what we can do to sort of highlight some of their voices. And it's kind of started with creative writing, but we're thinking of different ways it can grow to anything that people want to share. And sort of coming back to culture again, kind of, I think culture is such a fluid a fluid thing, right? So it's kind of, what do people want to share about their culture? What does culture mean to you, right? What is your culture? And people can share that, you know, individually, and sort of just, so sharing that voice has been really a priority for us. And yeah, and I agree with Tanya. I think that it is a messy process. I think that, I think the work is never finished. You can't just say check a box and say we're done, you know? And so, but that's part of the joy of it, is that, you know, it's these ongoing conversations. And I think engaging students, engaging parents has been a really positive thing, engaging the voices in our staff. It's something that we want to continue to do, and probably bring in different voices. I think those systems, I think maybe that's the long-term goal, is how can we continue to build systems? And one thought that comes to mind is, how can we build sort of an engine to share community voice, that so that people have their voices heard, right? Just not just students, parents, but also kind of the community, bigger issues that are happening. You know, we can only do so much as a school to really balance out like the inequities of the world. But I think just being aware of those things, and thinking about what we could do to eliminate some of those barriers, mental barriers as well, right? So if we think like, oh, no, our students can't do that, right? Then that's already a mental barrier. So we want to kind of take some of those things out, so that, you know, there's really no limits to the opportunities that our students can have.
This is really powerful what you just said. I just want to sit with that for just a second. Yes, no, thank you. Like, thinking about how you remove like the mental barriers and the mindsets that there's a limitation on our students is something that is really, and I think about some of the places I've been in, some of the schools I've worked in throughout my career, and in any time that there's been that kind of, that it's okay to put those kind of limitations on, is so damaging to students. And so I just want to say that the way you just articulated that and shared that with us is really important for all of us to be able to say, like, that's not what we're about, and that's not what we're doing. And in being responsive to our students is saying, you know, what our other panelists shared as well, is like the assets versus the deficits. And then also realizing that this work is something that's going to continue to develop over time. And also that as students come to our schools and families come to our schools, that we have to continue to always be in a mode of being responsive to them. And also thinking about how, as a school or a school district, are we supporting folks in a given moment in time. So just really want to say, appreciate that. And also thank you to your equity councils and also your school staff, and how you guys are thinking about culturally most responsive education. I know that we can probably have these conversations and continue to have a dialogue for sure. I don't know if there's any other questions that came up, but at this point, just want to kind of recenter us on those points that Myra shared with us that came out about a multicultural education. And I know that that statute was shared probably, I don't know, maybe I don't want to say what date it is, because I don't want to give you any information that's not accurate, but it was earlier on. And now we think about this moment in time where things have come, and since we started this work in 2019, and before that with CLRI and some of the work of Dr. Holly, as you continue to think about your CLR framework and culturally linguistically responsive instruction, is that continues to build upon each other, and just also how we're creating systems to support teachers who are coming into our schools and school districts to be able to have that kind of professional development and professional learning and reflection on their practice, knowing who our students are as well. And I just think about the mission that kind of ground myself in each and every day, is that our students are adequately prepared for college and career, secure in their identity and healthy, which really goes back to that culturally and linguistically responsive context, holistic wellness and well-being of our students. And also how are we thinking about embedding that in the instruction and everything that we do, from supporting our teachers to supporting one another and creating different opportunities to learn in different ways. So thank you all for your participation on the panel. If you can if you all are still there, Robin, Karen, Tanya, and Erin, if you can just camera yourself for just a second. I just wanted to say thank you. And appreciate you guys a lot. And all of you who are listening, feel free to reach out. We'll share the contact information too, if there's things that you want to learn, and we will definitely share out the information that you guys shared today. So, and I'm going to turn it back over to Myra to move us forward.
Thank you. And I would echo that. Thanks for sharing with all of us in your context. I do want to spend a little bit of time on announcements around service providers that are available. Please keep in mind, we will also send an email with these details as well. So we have a service provider we're moving forward with the Regional Education Cooperative, and they have a consortium of equity councils, and they are going to move forward in continuing to support in their context with parent and family education around school culture, and then providing equity and anti-racism professional development. And also will continue to share the information that they have, or everything that they have learned from that particular regional cooperatives equity councils. And so we look forward to sharing a little bit of that in the next 2 months. And then also please know that if you're part of this consortium, you should reach out and we'll begin working with this team. We have an additional service provider focused on supporting our students, Our Turn. They will support with training youth around how they can be change agents and participate in your equity councils. And this was a request that we had from many of you on how do we include our students. And so it'll be focused on youth leadership skills and also providing coaching sessions and on-demand skills building. So the partnership development will be really the focus, and we hope to move forward in the next couple of months with them, and then of course in the new school year. And one more announcement. I believe you've received a couple of emails on this particular. So Sin Fronteras Educational Partnership is working to foster relationships and cultivate opportunities and provide resources around family partnerships and with school communities. And so a lot of the team members from this partnership were part of our Equity Council head team in the past couple of years and have moved into this particular role of being a service provider. I know Alan shared a little bit of information earlier, and again, we've shared a couple of emails, but if you're interested in partnering with them, you can do so now, or you can begin conversations to think about how to partner in the new school year or in the summertime. Okay, so we'll move into our next activity.
Hi, everyone. So let's look at what now. We listened to such a great conversation from the panel around where they are with their equity councils and with CLR. And you also received information around service providers, around updates on the CLR framework and the inventory. So this is the part of the meeting where we do our to-do list around some of the goals of what we might do moving forward based on what we just learned today. So think about where you are with your goals. What does your equity council have or need in terms of readiness and resources to move it forward around the CLR inventory and framework? Do you need to revisit it? Do you need to update it? Did you learn something new today that you could apply? So just jot down a few things, include what it is, by when, who might do it, and how. What might it look like when it's completed, and how will you know when it's done? And so let's just take a couple of minutes to jot those things down, and then we're going to start sharing in the chat. So in the chat, you're going to list just one item from this to-do list that you're working on now. And attendees, as those start to pop into the chat, look for possible ideas that you could take on or implement, or maybe even some partnership opportunities. I see that people are talking about revisiting the CLR work with their new members, present the CLR work to the school board. Talking about moving forward with some training and support, reviewing the CLR work with district leadership, do some regular updates with the board around this work, trainings, deeper dives into what it looks like for elementary schools. Oh, presenting at family nights. That looks fantastic. Presenting the CLR work to the board and at family nights. Great. So everybody take a look in the chat. And as usual, that chat will be available in the Google folders early next week, just in case you didn't catch everything today, or you want to partner with a certain person who dropped something in the chat. I will turn it over to Everett now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Everett Hill, a member of the EC Hub. Thank you, Julia. Just a quick minute to talk about part of the Black Education Act rollout and some of the supports. You can see there on the slide that the act was developed to identify best practices for strengthening educational outcomes for Black students, addressing the education gap, but really in a holistic and systemic manner, combat discrimination and racism throughout our public school system. And much of what you all have been talking about, and it's been wonderful to hear around creating and sustaining equitable and culturally responsive learning environments. And so there are some additional supportive materials that have been and are being developed for folks to use here in New Mexico, and hopefully helps us to think about in the spirit of doing equity work grounded in the isms. And next slide, please. So one of the offerings in supporting the rollout is this. It's a self-paced modular program. This is the first module. It's called Meeting the Moment. I think somebody mentioned earlier from the panel, right? These moments happen and we attempt to meet them in the most proactive way we can, being supportive of the young people we work with. And so this course actually is committed to building a community of learners, committed to anti-racism, helping school personnel really recognize and respond to instances that happen. And it's really throughout the ecosystem. So it talks about the interpersonal pieces, but we'll also go into the systemic nature of proactively mitigating this kind of work. Next slide. And there is a quick snapshot of kind of how you can access it. I think it might also get dropped in the chat, a link to it, but if you Google it or go to that, that web address, you can actually find that first set of modules. And I think really understanding that in supporting and doing equity work, that there's a need to be able to also engage the isms, doing proactive mitigation in those areas. And hopefully this training will provide you a little bit more support through the lens of the Black Education Act, an opportunity to engage some of that. Oh, it is, that Canvas training is, I just saw very quickly how many hours is it? It is, this first module is a 2-hour module because it goes over an overview of ecosystemic issues and it looks at racism as racist acts as both violent acts, as well as racism being a public health kind of emergency. And so it is about 2 hours. And now I'll turn it back over to Maida.
Thank you. We do have someone from our extended NMPED team to share about the Opportunity to Learn survey that many of you have likely already received or have heard about.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity to share the Opportunity to Learn survey, the Youth Forward Survey Battery for Families. We have a family survey that we'd love for you to get the word out. It's asking questions with respect to the family's perception of their sense of belonging to the school and school community, of the sense of their perception of the culturally and linguistic responsive instruction occurring at the school, the rigor of the instruction occurring at the school, and other aspects of their engagement. There are, if you follow that link that you can see on the website, on the screen now, you can find the links to the survey, as well as preview the survey and an FAQ. So yeah, you can actually see the survey items there at that link. If you just go to the website, you can find it under the community engagement section as well. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. I did drop the link that was on the slide in the chat as well. A couple of reminders and some next steps that you can find our resources for you and your equity councils on our website. And if you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us at the email yazm.inquiry@state.nm.us. A quick reminder once again that our website has evolved a bit. And so there are different pages for each equity and action item. We have a webinars and trainings page where you can find the recording for this meeting and others, as well as the slides. And we do have an advisement process page specifically built, and that is actually the focus of our meeting for next month. And we do have a support and accountability page that includes some information around the NM Dash modules. Okay, Ian will take us into the closing so we can move into our next space.
Thank you, Maida, and thank you all so much for joining us today. Quick closing practice. Invite everybody to take a big inhale in and lift your arms up. So you inhale in, arms all the way up, and as you exhale, just drop your arms down as fast as you can. And then invite you to shake a little bit, get the blood flowing again. Appreciate all the time that you shared with us. Appreciate again the panelists and other presenters for sharing all the great information. Thank you all so much. I believe this closes the meeting for us. Maida, if you have anything else, I invite you to jump in and let us know. But otherwise, thank you all so much.